right now, the very same Wall Street billionaires who spent, the last decade preaching the gospel of green energy and carbon reduction, they are desperately trying to build new coal plants.
Which is just a massive pivot.
It's unbelievable. I mean, why? Because the artificial intelligence living inside your phone is, well, it's basically starving for electricity.
Yeah.
And think about that for a second. For years, the unquestionable orthodoxy globally was all about reducing our carbon footprint, right? Leaders, politicians, major financial institutions.
Everyone.
Yeah, everyone was demanding this massive shift to wind, solar, and strict ESG metrics.
Right, those ESG metrics, the environmental, social, and governance standards, I mean, they became the ultimate scorecard for corporate behavior.
Exactly.
Companies literally reshaped their entire long-term strategies to ensure they were viewed as, climate conscious above almost any other metric. Prioritizing green infrastructure wasn't just some PR move.
It was required.
Yeah, it was the prerequisite for attracting investment. But suddenly we were looking at this really jarring contradiction. Oh, totally jarring. Because those exact same financial leaders are now demanding an unprecedented, almost unbelievable expansion of heavy industrial-age power generation.
Right.
I'm talking natural gas pipelines, massive new electrical substations, and yes, even bringing coal plants back online in some parts of the world. And it is entirely driven by the physical demands of artificial intelligence. It really is. The infrastructure required to power the supposed future of technology is turning out to rely heavily on the brute force, resource-intensive infrastructure of the past. It is just a staggering pivot in the global corporate narrative.
And that is exactly what we are exploring today. We have a fascinating set of sources for this deep dive. It's a highly detailed, incredibly intense debate between a prominent political commentator and Kevin O'Leary, the billionaire investor and developer.
It's a great debate, too.
Oh, it's intense. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the hidden physical and societal costs of the AI revolution. We're going to look at two fiercely opposing perspectives on what this massive technological shift actually means for your future, your job, and your local power grid.
There's a lot to cover.
There is. Okay, let's unpack this. How big of a physical footprint are we actually talking about when we say, AI infrastructure?
Well, to really grasp the footprint, we have to look at how quickly the corporate tune has changed. You have major players like Larry Fink at BlackRock.
Right, BlackRock.
Historically, BlackRock was the champion of ESG investing. Now, Fink is essentially arguing that we have to put a pin in our climate concerns.
Wow.
Yeah, because the Western world desperately needs to build more electricity generation for AI. The scale of what developers are trying to build right now is honestly hard to wrap your head around. A proposed data center project in Utah serves as a perfect primary example from the sources.
The numbers on this Utah project are just staggering. We were talking about a footprint of 40,000 acres.
Yeah, 40,000.
That is 62 square miles. To put that in perspective for you, that is multiples the size of the island of Manhattan.
It's basically its own city.
A single data center campus the size of a major city.
The land grab is massive, sure, but the real shock is the power draw. Once fully operational, this single Utah facility is projected to require 9 gigawatts of power.
I feel like gigawatt is one of those terms that sounds like a made-up sci-fi number from Back to the Future.
Right, the 1.21 gigawatts.
Exactly. So what is 9 gigawatts in practical, everyday terms?
Well, a gigawatt is a billion watts. To put 9 gigawatts into everyday perspective, that is more than double the amount of electricity that the entire state of Utah currently uses.
Wait, double the entire state?
The entire state. Take every single resident, every air conditioning unit running in the summer, all the industrial manufacturing, the ski lifts, the charging stations for electric vehicles.
Oh my.
Take all of that combined usage and multiply it by 2. That is the power required for this 162 square mile facility.
That is mind-bending. The political commentator in our sources compared this to the Boeing Everett plant in Washington State, which, is the largest manufacturing facility in the U.S.
Right.
It's the building where they assemble massive 747 wide-body airplanes. And that airplane factory uses about 1/4 gigawatt annually.
1/4 gigawatt.
Yeah. We are talking about building computer warehouses that require 36 times the power of the largest airplane factory in the country. It almost defies logic. I mean, standard cloud computing never required this kind of juice.
No, it didn't. What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of how artificial intelligence actually works compared to traditional computing.
Okay, break that down.
Just a couple of years ago, a massive state-of-the-art data center required about 100 megawatts. That was plenty of power to handle basic cloud storage.
Like holding your smartphone photos, running Netflix servers, hosting Excel files.
Exactly. But training modern large language models is an entirely different beast. The minimum power required for these AI training facilities jumped almost overnight from 250 megawatts to 500 megawatts to now developers demanding minimum 1 gigawatt facilities.
I want to try to visualize what's happening inside those buildings,
Yeah.
because it clearly isn't just storing files. Standard computing is like a librarian handing you a specific book when you ask for it. It takes a tiny bit of energy.
Right.
But training an AI is like asking a million scholars to read every single book in the library simultaneously, cross-reference every single word, analyze the underlying concepts, and deliver a synthesized thesis in 10 seconds.
That analogy hits on the exact physical reality. When we talk about AI, we're talking about millions of graphics processing units, or GPUs, running simultaneously.
It's constantly running.
Yeah. When you ask a traditional computer to find a file, it searches sequentially. It's a very low-friction process. When you ask an AI model a question, it is constantly calculating probabilities across billions of parameters in real time. The sheer mathematical friction of that brain power generates an immense amount of literal heat. To keep those processors from melting themselves into slag, you need industrial-scale chillers and cooling systems running 247.
Which takes power.
Tons of it. That cooling plus the raw electrical input for the GPUs is where all that power goes. It's why compute, which is the industry term for raw processing capability, it scales exponentially, not linearly.
And it's like finding out your sleek, invisible new smartphone actually requires a coal-burning locomotive in your backyard just to keep the screen on.
That's a great way to put it.
How did we go from AI being a software update to AI eating entire local power grids?
Yeah.
Because this exponential power grab is having immediate real-world impacts on everyday people right now.
It really is.
Our sources highlight a rather terrifying warning sent to the residents of Lake Tahoe. 55,000 permanent residents were reportedly told by their Nevada-based power provider that by the end of 2027, their electricity is going to be diverted to power a new data center.
That is wild.
An entire community has been told they need to find a completely new source of power in the next few years. It really drives home the point that the cloud isn't floating up in the sky. It's a massive, vinyl-clad warehouse down the road, and it is thirsty for the exact same resources that heat your home.
Right, and if these data centers are pulling enough juice to brown out communities and spike local utility rates, which we've already seen happen in Virginia.
Oh yeah, Virginia.
Yeah, residential electricity bills jumped 30% in areas flooded with data centers. So you have to ask, what is driving the sheer panic to build them right now? Why not wait for the national grid to catch up?
That is the pivotal question. If the physical toll is this heavy, what is the justification for this breakneck speed?
Yeah.
In the debate between the commentator and Kevin O'Leary, O'Leary justifies the massive build-out purely through the lens of a geopolitical arms race.
Exactly. Kevin O'Leary views this as the modern equivalent of the nuclear arms race, but fought with compute power. The overarching theory is that whichever nation trains the most advanced AI models will secure absolute economic and military dominance for the next century.
It's all about dominance.
Right. AI superiority isn't just about faster software. It translates to vastly superior military logistics, rapid autonomous weapon development, and unmatched cyber warfare capabilities.
Which brings China into the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. O'Leary points to intelligence suggesting China is currently building 400 gigawatts of new coal power specifically to fuel their own massive data centers.
400 gigawatts.
Yeah, all to train models like DeepSeek, which is a highly competitive Chinese AI system.
So O'Leary's essentially saying that if we don't build these 9-gigawatt behemoths, we hand the keys to the future over to a foreign adversary. But he isn't blind to the Virginia problem, right? He knows you can't just plug a facility the size of Manhattan into a public grid.
No, it would instantly collapse the system. So O'Leary's proposed solution for the Utah project is 100% energy independence. The developers plan to bypass the local grid entirely by tapping into underutilized national infrastructure.
Okay.
Specifically, they are eyeing the Ruby pipeline, which transports natural gas across several states, but is reportedly operating at only 17% capacity.
Barely being used.
Exactly. They intend to take that stranded, unused natural gas to power brand new, highly efficient turbines built right on the data center campus.
And crucially, the sources mentioned these are air-cooled turbines, meaning they don't have to drain the local water supply to cool the power plant, which, is a massive point of contention anytime you build industrial infrastructure in a desert state like Utah.
Yes. O'Leary presents this as a win-win. The developers bring their own gas, generate their own electricity on site, avoid burdening the public grid, and save the water.
Makes sense on paper.
He even suggests they might generate a surplus of electricity that they could sell back to the public grid to actually lower local rates.
Well, if I'm a local taxpayer in Utah, I might be willing to swallow that massive 62 square mile physical footprint if I thought the project was entirely self-sufficient and going to enrich my town.
Sure.
But the political commentator in our sources argues that the financial math is incredibly suspicious. Even if these developers bring their own power, they are still asking for massive tax breaks and subsidies from local governments to build there.
Yeah, the return on investment for the local community becomes a major point of friction in their debate. The commentator points out that for a facility the size of a city, the job creation is surprisingly minimal.
So they aren't employing a ton of people.
Not long-term. O'Leary estimates the Utah project will create roughly 10,000 temporary construction jobs to build the facility. But once it is operational, it will only require about 2,000 long-term jobs for maintenance, security, and operations.
Wait, let me get this straight. If this is a guaranteed world-changing gold rush for the richest companies on Earth, we have the trillion-dollar tech monopolies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft. Why on earth do local taxpayers need to subsidize their shovels?
It's a great question.
The commentator makes a compelling point. Is this really the free market at work? Or is this a forced transfer of wealth from rural taxpayers to tech executives, all rammed through under the terrifying guise of a national security emergency?
Well, understanding that dynamic requires looking at how American infrastructure development actually functions at the state level. O'Leary views this through a highly pragmatic, cutthroat lens.
Right.
States compete against each other for these projects. If Utah doesn't offer massive property tax incentives, a state like Mississippi or Texas will.
So it's a race to the bottom.
Exactly. Utah would then lose out on whatever tax revenue and jobs do exist, minimal as they might be. To O'Leary, offering subsidies to trillion-dollar companies is just how the game of economic development is played.
But the commentator argues that this system completely bypasses the democratic process. You have a handful of local officials, like 3 rural county commissioners, making decisions behind closed doors that will drastically alter the physical landscape and lock up local land and resource rights for decades.
Yeah.
The public feels entirely left out of the conversation. There are no broad public referendums. The decisions are being driven top-down by tech companies and politicians.
It creates a really fascinating tension between macro-level national security and micro-level community sovereignty. But the debate in our sources goes even deeper than the concrete, the natural gas pipelines, and the local tax battles.
Oh yeah, the human element.
Right. It ultimately shifts to the end product itself. When these 9 gigawatt digital brains are fully operational and trained, what happens to human beings?
And this is where the source material moves from infrastructure into deep existential philosophy. There is a palpable, heavy anxiety, particularly among the younger generation, about what this technology is fundamentally designed to do.
The debate highlighted a very telling anecdote from the University of Central Florida. A prominent real estate executive was giving a commencement speech to the graduating class.
Oh, this story was wild.
Yeah, she drops a line, clearly expecting cheers and applause, calling AI the next industrial revolution. Instead, the entire room full of 22-year-olds erupts in boos.
And I can completely understand why they booed. Think about their perspective. They just spent 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars to get degrees in marketing, coding, accounting, or writing.
Right.
And they're staring down a potentially barren job market because AI can now do the entry-level versions of those jobs instantly.
The dystopian fear, articulated heavily by the commentator, is that AI isn't just automating physical manual labor. It is explicitly designed to automate intellectual labor.
Right, the thinking jobs, the creative jobs.
Exactly.
The commentator argues that if you eliminate 50% of high-paying intellectual jobs, you aren't just taking away a paycheck. You are stripping humans of their core mission. The fundamental human drive is to build, to solve problems, to create. If the machine creates for us, what do we actually do with our days?
The commentator even quotes Geoffrey Hinton on this, a computer scientist widely considered one of the godfathers of AI. Hinton has publicly expressed profound fears about these systems eventually surpassing human intelligence, reasoning that highly intelligent systems naturally seek to seize control from less intelligent operators.
Which is terrifying on its own.
Very. But even stepping back from a sci-fi machine takeover scenario, the commentator points out a much more immediate grounded fear. The massive data centers being built right now could easily serve as the physical backbone for a total surveillance state.
Yeah, he used the concept of a panopticon. For those unfamiliar, a panopticon is a prison design where the inmates can never tell if the guards are watching them at any given moment, so they end up policing their own behavior out of fear.
Just constantly paranoid.
Exactly. The commentator worries that an AI-driven society becomes a digital panopticon, where every communication, transaction, and thought can be monitored, analyzed, and influenced by whoever controls the 9-gigawatt machines.
It is a profoundly dark vision. But Kevin O'Leary pushes back against this anxiety with a very utopian counterargument.
Right, the tech optimist view.
Exactly. He likens the current panic over AI to the societal panic people felt when the Model T Ford was introduced or when the internet first went mainstream in the early 1990s. O'Leary's core belief is that disruptive technology always destroys old paradigms and old jobs, but it invariably creates unimaginable new ones that elevate the human condition.
And he grounds this in a very personal, compelling medical anecdote. O'Leary talks about getting a comprehensive full-body medical scan. Over just 3 years, the price of this advanced scan dropped by 80%.
Huge drop.
Right. And thanks to AI analyzing his massive medical data file, he received his results, which identified a sinus infection and a kidney cyst in just 18 minutes. A diagnostic process that just a couple of years ago would have taken a team of human doctors 3 weeks to process.
It's an incredible leap in efficiency.
It is. But here's where it gets really interesting. We are essentially being offered a societal trade. We get the 18-minute miracle medical diagnosis. We get hyper-efficiency. We get lower costs on complex services. But the price of that efficiency might be living in a digital panopticon, where we no longer have a primary economic or creative purpose. And I have to push back a bit on O'Leary's historical analogies.
Oh, how so?
Well, when the Model T arrived, it replaced horses and human muscle. It automated physical endurance. When the internet arrives in 1992, it changed how we distributed information. But neither of those replaced our ability to reason. AI seems to be crossing a fundamentally different threshold because it aims to automate the human soul, our cognition and creativity.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are standing at a profound philosophical crossroads. The commentator is warning of a modern bread and circuses society.
Where we just exist to consume whatever the machine feeds us.
Exactly. The idea is that even if we implement something like universal basic income, where everyone gets a government check to survive because the AI systems are generating all the economic value without a true purpose, without the necessary human struggle to learn and create, society rots from the inside out.
It's a bleak outlook.
It is. But against that bleak outlook, you have O'Leary's relentless, almost aggressive optimism. He views AI strictly as an unfeeling tool, a tool to advance human health, to drive unprecedented economic productivity, and crucially, to protect Western values.
The arms race again.
Right. To him, the ultimate goal is exporting the American dream, freedom, innovation, and opportunity. And you simply cannot do that if a foreign autocracy controls the most powerful technological tool on Earth.
It truly is the ultimate debate of our time. Is AI the ultimate societal cheat code unlocking medical miracles and endless productivity? Or is it a looming dystopia that renders us economically useless and constantly surveilled? So what does this all mean for you?
Yeah, where does this leave the listener?
Well, whether you lean towards O'Leary's utopian view or the commentator's dystopian warnings, the undeniable takeaway from our sources is that the physical reality of AI is already here. It is not just invisible lines of code floating in the ether.
Not at all.
Developers are aggressively acquiring thousands of acres of land. Data centers the size of cities are being built right now. They're going to require more power than entire states currently consume. They are reshaping local economies. They are redirecting natural resources like water and natural gas. And they are absolutely going to impact your local power grid, your tax bill, and potentially your career path.
And, exploring the sheer scale of this infrastructure leaves us with one final, perhaps unsettling puzzle to consider.
Okay, let's hear it.
We spend so much time worrying about whether artificial intelligence will eventually become conscious, break its programming, and decide to wipe us out. But looking at the billions of dollars being spent, the miles of pipelines being laid, the vast tracts of land being cleared, and the literal rivers of electricity we are voluntarily redirecting just to feed these massive machines.
Yeah. We might want to ask, have we already been reprogrammed to serve them?
Yeah.
Wow, that is a thought that is going to stick with me. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. The next time you see a headline about a sleek new AI model or a cool software update on your phone, remember to look past the screen. Think about the 62-square-mile behemoth and the massive physical footprint happening right in our backyards. We'll catch you next time.